All right, good morning, everyone. It's 8:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started. This is a really great size group, and this is great because I can interact with you. And first, I want to say, did everybody survive the freeze? Yes? Okay, good, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everyone, and we're just going to get started with Discover, Connect, Respond. Okay, so before we get started, there was a question leading up to this conference about, will I share the slideshow with you? And let me tell you what I have for you guys. And you can go ahead and start opening things now. You can see you can't see because at the bottom of the screen, there is a bit.ly that, hold on one second. Let's go. I'm gonna go ahead and put them, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna put a bit.ly into the chat for everyone and a Padlet so that you can go access all the resources about Discover, Connect, Respond here. And so go ahead and try to open that Padlet, and how about show me a thumbs up when you get there. And I just realized that on the screen share, it doesn't show you the link, so I'm going to put that in there too. Into the chat. Okay, so the bit.ly is a landing page. It has the whole routine on it. And then the Padlet has resources. Can you guys show me a thumbs up if you're able to open those things? Thank you, Esmeralda. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? So we're ready for this.
Good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
If everyone's got it. All right. Okay. Now I'm going back into share screen again. The second one works, but not the first one. Somebody just said, Caitlin said, can anyone get into the Padlet?
It looked like we were able to get into the Padlet, and the bit.ly, it looks like you're forced to make a copy. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Discover, Connect, Respond. This is a little bit about me. And so I had the great opportunity to teach in Tegucigalpa, Honduras. And the children that I taught were actually scavengers in the garbage dump. I was able to teach elementary through secondary and high school. And the amazing thing and the joy of being involved in this experience is that kids that had, as an average in the community, a third grade education were able to go on to college. So I learned so much from them. It was a beautiful time. And then when I came back to the United States, I started serving as an ESL teacher and then a language coach in a Title I school in Frisco. And now I have the great pleasure of working as a silence consultant. And we're going to talk a little bit about what happened when I took some of the lessons from Honduras into a Title I school in Frisco. So here's a picture of one of the students. His nickname was Pollito, and you could see him working in the garbage dump here. So I'm actually going to start with a story of a failure. And the story of a failure is a student I tried so hard to reach, and he ended up leaving the school and being sent to an alternative school. And with this particular student, I knew that he came from a background of trauma because I had him in my language arts class, and he would write eloquently about the beatings that he received from his mother, whereas his twin did not receive these beatings. And the way that he acted out this trauma was in an explosive way. And it was hard to get everyone at the school on board with seeing this behavior as a form of trauma instead of insubordination. And so I remember at that time thinking, if only there was a resource that was for emergent bilingual students that talked about language and culture and trauma and how all of these things come together to explain student behavior and what we can do about it. So that was kind of my guiding quest. And from there, I went and I looked into something called trust-based relational intervention, TBRI, which is used very effectively in the foster care system and with children who are orphans to help them heal from trauma. I began looking into interpersonal neurobiology and just went on this huge quest to find out, how do we help kids who come from hard places? And when I started applying some of those routines and interventions with children in the Title I school and the lessons learned from Honduras, we saw a huge growth in STAR scores, actually. And interestingly, the children from the school at my Title I middle school were from Honduras as well, and other places in Central America. And so STAR scores jumped from 16 to 61%. And I started thinking, maybe there's something to this. What's happening here? So we're going to take all of those lessons learned, and we've connected them into a routine called Discover, Connect, Respond. And here are our objectives for today. So if you could take a minute and just read those quietly to yourself. Okay, I'm going to read them out loud, and then we're going to talk about some of the vocabulary in here. So our content objective is to gain strategies to help students who have experienced trauma to increase their language output in academic settings. And we're going to define trauma the same way that Horowitz did, as a sudden and forceful event that overwhelms a person's ability to respond to it. And when I say increase their language output, I'm talking about their ability to listen, speak, read, and write. We're going to discuss how to apply this routine in our setting. And so we have a huge variety of people in the Zoom today. We have some administrators, we have some college professors, we have some ESL teachers, we have some language acquisition specialists. And so the idea behind this training today, it's really just a preview of the routine. And it's something that we can take back to our campus and have everyone involved in using the Discover, Connect, Respond strategy to students who come from hard places. Because honestly, you guys, when I look around at ESL teachers, especially, some of us already do this naturally, but not everyone is informed about trauma, and not everyone is informed about culture. And we need to speak with the same voice as a campus and as administrators, that what is happening with the student is because they come from a hard place. So during this Zoom, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for you guys to discuss and to give me kind of your insight via chat and via, we're a small enough group that we could just talk out loud about this. I am going to be randomizing and rotating because this is a silence training, so get ready for that. And like I said, we're doing just an overview today. This is a very complex, in-depth strategy. There's not enough time to go into all of it, but I am going to go really deep into part one. And we're going to have group chat for guided wisdom and look at one student as an archetype to see how this plays out. So here is our first conversation. And our question is, what is one good thing that you have experienced working with emergent bilingual students? I want you to think about this for a moment. And then I'm going to randomize. Oh, I forgot to ask you guys in the chat to share. I'm just going to randomly call on someone from the chat to share about one good thing that you have experienced working with emergent bilingual students. Okay, let's go with Caitlin. Do you feel comfortable sharing about a good thing you've learned from working with emergent bilingual students?
Sure.
Okay.
One good thing I've experienced working with ESL students is, especially when they're from those hard places, they oftentimes, not all the time, are willing to have or invite a relationship with you to connect. And the ESL teacher is often the one they trust the most and are willing to talk about their life the most. Even if there's a language barrier, they tend to let that wall down a little more. And I've seen it, like you said, your failure story reminds me a lot of a student, but that same student was able to let down some of those walls in my classroom. Unfortunately, he also went to an alternative school, but just hope that he carries that one adult that had hopefulness in them with them. So
That's so good. Thank you, Caitlin. Thanks for sharing.
thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about an overview of Discover. Oh, I didn't do share screen. Hold on a second. 1 second. Sorry, guys. I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, let's talk about an overview of Discover, Connect, Respond. And I had the opportunity to practice this just right before the freeze when we had a brand new student come to the school from Japan. And so I'm going to talk about what happened with that student in particular, because it kind of shows a microcosm of Discover, Connect, Respond in 24 hours. So with this student, what happened was his dad came in and not the student because he did not feel comfortable being in school. The dad had trouble explaining in English, but I was able to discover the student's story from the dad that something traumatic happened to him in his home country during pandemic schooling, and he was terrified to be in school after that. He would not go to school and he would only have a one-on-one tutor. And so the dad said that he took a gamble by enrolling him in regular school in the United States and that he didn't know if it was going to work. So the first part of the Discover, Connect, Respond strategy is to find a way to discover the student's story. And sometimes that involves broadening our perspective about what is happening with the student. It also involves listening for the child's voice in their behavior, looking at behavior differently, and then also considering cultural assets. So that is the first part of it. And so with this new student that came in, when I first met him, I am speaking with him via a Google Translate in Japanese, and I'm trying to find out, kind of watching and reading his body language for what is his behavior telling us. And I'll go into this more, but the next day that I came back, I took him through the Connect strategy. And then the next day that I came back, he was sitting on the couch and the whole school's administration was surrounding him, trying to get him off the couch to come to school. So we had the APs there, we had a translator, we had a counselor, we had everybody. And so one of the things about interpersonal neurobiology teaches us that emotion is contagious and that children can sense and perceive all the other emotions in the room. And so I had to get everybody out of the room because they were all anxious and the child was picking up their anxiousness. And then as soon as I got everybody out of the room, I was able to say to him, come on, come with me. And he was able to get off the couch and go to class. And I'm not talking about all the details in here, but I just wanted to share this one story because applying these tenets is what helps a student to self-regulate and to be successful with language and academically. So connecting authentically means that we are able to attune to the child's emotions, show the student that he is seen, and also help them dismantle their fear complex by lending our calm to them. And then part 3 is responding to the student's felt needs. This is creating a safe environment in the classroom, following their natural interest. And so in this one, I'm showing the World Cup, and then personalizing a learning plan. So that's kind of the broad overview, which you also have in your landing page. And now we're going to talk in detail about part 1. So I wanted to first share this video with you about what inform, discover, connect, respond. And it's based partly on an intervention called trust-based relational intervention. So I'm going to share this video with you. Oops. I'm going to share this video with you. It's already tuned up.
We can't hear it on our end, Elise.
You guys can't hear it?
No.
Wonder why that is. Let me see. You can't hear anything, or can you hear a little bit?
We can't hear anything. I'm also looking on my end.
Okay. I'm just going to put this in the chat then. And then maybe you guys can watch it on your own. I don't know why it's not working. Sorry about that.
You can unshare and share again, and then it's going to ask you to share the sound.
Oh,
If you
okay.
want to try that.
Thanks for everyone's patience. So stop share and share again is what I should do?
Yes, and it's going to ask you to share the sound.
Okay. I don't see it asking me to share.
Once you select the screen,
sound.
it's going to tell you like in the bottom, it's like a little square, and that's going to share the sound. You have to unshare and again.
I don't see that little thing, but let me see.
Hey,
I'm just
Elise,
going, yeah.
when you would have to stop screen sharing,
Mhm.
and then when you share, it's that green button at the bottom to share.
Yes.
So that's when when it's asking you like which what do you want to share? Do you want to share a window? Do you want to share your whole screen? Look at the bottom and see if there's anything that says share sound, share video. It's not once you're already sharing. It's
Okay.
to share.
Okay.
It's right when you
Okay.
hit the green.
Okay, I'm gonna try it one more time.
It's good
Okay,
to
I'm gonna try
have
it one more time. And if it doesn't work, here's it in the chat anyway too.
Perfect.
If it doesn't work, we're just moving on, but I'm gonna try it one more
That's
time. Thanks
right.
for your patience, guys.
Oh, it's fine. We're fine.
Oh, yep, I see what you're talking about now. Okay.
It might
This
be
feels
something else.
real. Okay. I'm even optimizing for a video clip. Let's see if that happens. Okay, let's try this again.
TBRI,
Can we hear it?
trust-based
Perfect.
relational
Yay.
intervention,
Yes.
Yay,
has
okay.
its core building a trusting relationship. It has 3 sets of principles, and they look at the child as a whole. When you think about development, the baby cries, and I say, yes, I will comfort you. And so this child learns that they have a voice. They learn trust, which is the lesson of the first year of life. I can trust. There are so many children from hard places, and for those children, their capacity to trust has been fiercely damaged. The brain chemistry of a child who cries and no one comes is dramatically altered. The child with a history of trauma or loss or abuse has no hope of healing without a nurturing relationship. In every way that I make time and space, that I give touch, eye contact, and I give words, I am going to empower this child to go back to the beginning of what he or she should have experienced in the arms of a loving parent that said, when you cry, I will come. The phenomenal thing about a trust-based intervention is, as we connect to this child, as we build safety, we actually change the brain chemistry. We change the wiring of the brain. This is really the heart and soul of all that we are and all that we do. Do I look into the child's eyes? Do I touch their arm when I talk to them? When they talk to me, do I stop what I'm doing and talk to them? This is the essence of mindfulness. The excitatory chemicals about I'm afraid, I'm hungry, I'm cold, those are balanced when the caregiver comes and gives warmth. All regulation occurs first with an external regulator. So in the beginning, I regulate all. They're cold, I bring warmth. They're crying, I bring myself. And out of my regulation, their brain develops capacity for self-regulation. If this child didn't have this experience, that child doesn't feel safe. This chemistry can be altered, first by knowing they're safe, second by nutrient-rich foods, third by my environmental regulation of that child's emotion, and fourth by appropriate exercise. So we can balance brain chemistry by creating a holistic environment. We clearly have to deal with behavior. Correcting means showing a child the right behavior, praising him when he gets it, and showing it to him until he can get it right, and showing him with no fear and no shame, so that he builds success, not a greater sense of failure. So the message of hope for our families is that we can help our children to dramatic levels of healing. We simply have to be devoted to it and be willing to invest what it's going to take.
All right, so you guys, this is just some beautiful good news that we can help students heal from trauma by recreating the connection that they should have had with their first caregiver. And we're going to talk more about how to do this. I'm going to give you guys some very practical steps in a minute, but I wanted to show you that video because it kind of lays the foundation of everything we're going to do moving forward. So I'm going to skip past this for a second too. So first of all, I want to talk about the students that we have in our classes in our schools right now. And let's do this. Why don't you put in the chat if you have any of these students in your classes? You could just name them by the archetype names that I'm giving them, or that you've seen in your past career. So here's the first one, the student who wants nothing to do with you. She is a beginner and teachers wonder, does she understand what you're saying? She's got an off-putting personality that even in her home language, other students don't want to hang out with her. And she seems completely uninterested in what is happening in the classroom. So if you have the student who wants nothing to do with you, if you've seen the student in the past, go ahead and put the name Thuy Nguyen in the chat. This is a made-up name, by the way, of course, and made-up pictures for these archetypes. Okay, and the next one is the student who drives you crazy. This student is technically a long-term emergent bilingual, although he doesn't speak any languages other than English. He's dual-coded SPED and ESL, and he's a frequent flyer in detention. He causes havoc in the classroom. If you have seen the student in your educational career, go ahead and put the name Isaiah Montañez in the chat. Okay, and then we also have the student who no one expects anything from. Father is alcoholic and abusive. He's never passed anything. The student comes from a low socioeconomic background and has actually been in juvenile hall for fighting. This is the one that the teachers are just counting down the referrals until they could send them to the alternate school. If you have that student in your classroom or have had him in the past, write Miguel Morales in the chat. Okay, and the last one we're going to call the reluctant learner. This is a student who is failing almost all his core classes. He's a long-term English learner. Parents are not helpful or responsive. Teachers have tried to reach out and they're not getting anything back. The student at risk, and he just seems like he doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't want to engage. If you have had the reluctant learner in the past, please type Armand Vabi in the chat. Okay. So here's the instructional routine in action we're going to pick Armand Vabi. So the first step is to discover the student's story. How do we broaden our perspective and start to see what's happening with this reluctant learner that is beyond just seeing him as a reluctant learner? So some of the things that the teachers are saying about the student is, this is a will, not a skill issue. Parents really don't value education. That is why they are not involved. Those are what the teachers are saying. Student has been brought through the MTSS, RTI process, and but in your gut, you kind of know there's something else going on. How do we find out what that something else is? Because this is a student who is not known as a student who has experienced obvious trauma. What is happening with the student and how do we find that out? So on the Padlet, there are all of these things to help you. But the first thing that we need to do is we need to identify our unconscious assumptions. So we teachers have this superpower that when we've worked with students for so many years and we start seeing some of the similar behaviors, maybe we see a student who is fidgeting in class and just is shouting out all the time. We start moving toward that student, maybe as if that student has ADHD, and we start incorporating more movement into the lesson, more visuals, and it's kind of a superpower, but it also could be our kryptonite, because sometimes what we assume is happening with the student is not what is going on at all. And so part of the training is to take teachers through this self-reflection about behavior, where we identify the behavior. In this case, it's Armand's reluctance, and we explain that behavior as we understand it. Maybe it's will, not skill, but then we are asked to question our own assumptions and think again, as Adam Grant urges us, of how do we know that explanation is valid? The reason that I have the picture of shoes up here is because every day that I come home from work and I trip over my husband's shoes, I think, okay, he's home from work too. But the other day I came home, I tripped over his shoes again, and I forgot that he is out of town. And so it's kind of symbolic of what happens to us in the classroom is we see a cue, we make an assumption, but sometimes our assumptions are not valid, and that keeps us from broadening our perspective about the student's story. So what we need to do to broaden our perspective is to dive into the student's cumulative file and also to complete our homework looking at all the data that explains, like, does the student have a high reading lexile level? What has been their progress throughout their whole educational career? Did anything happen to that student where we saw the progress dive? With this particular student, Armand Vabi, I discovered in his cumulative file that everyone that they were reaching out to as his mother was not actually his mother. There was a form in there where his mother gave over his guardianship to another woman. And I would never have found that if I didn't look in his cumulative file. And so I reached out to that woman in her home language, and she was so helpful with a wealth of information and started telling me about Armand's background, that his mother was on drugs, she's been in and out of prison, they do not have a good relationship, and so she has kind of taken over raising him because his mother was not there. And so that gave me such helpful information to think, could it be a matter of an attachment problem with Armand that is making him seem reluctant to learn? So our first step is to dive deep into the files, have a trust-based parent conference in their home language that's culturally informed, to build that trust so that they can share what happened with the student and we could find out the whole story. Another step, and this is also included in the Padlet, is inviting student feedback. So this is a Google form that you can just copy and paste and send out, and it asks students questions like, do you think your teachers actually like you? And who are you as a student? What do you love to do, and are you good at it? So all of these things give us a fuller picture about who is the student and what is influencing their behavior. So here's some information about attachment. We're getting kind of low on time, so I'm going to skip over a lot of this. But essentially, back to that video that we saw, when students do not attach to their first caregiver and learn that their needs are going to be met, it could show itself up later, like they might have trouble relating to other people. They might go into depression. They might show signs of fear and anxiety. And so it is so important that we take into account the full student story instead of just going with the obvious answer that it's a will, not a skill issue. Language, our rope of connection that is tossed out to another invitation, is broken when that rope is used in a harmful way to threaten us. And what we find is that when we redo this attachment cycle with kids in the classroom, that language also increases at the same time. So attachment theory teaches us that the brain actually lights up in a different way when there's that close connected relationship between a parent and a child, and that teachers can emulate that same relationship and they can attach to students in a similar way, which builds their language and their academic output. It can actually help students heal from trauma. So another tool that's in that Padlet is a SWOT analysis to discover the student's story. And this is something that we use in nonprofit work, and it's looking at a student. We often look at them with an asset based of just their strengths, but I wanted to show you what it would look like to look at a student's progress through a SWOT analysis framework, and Armand Vavi in particular. So from the student survey we gathered, and the trusting relationship with his parent, we gathered all this information, and this is what it told us. That he enjoys editing other students' work, that he plays the tuba, and that we know already that he struggles with depression, which is affecting his motivation in school. And so that's not a will or skill issue, it's a deeper issue than that. And the opportunities that are available to help him grow is that we can see that he's desperate to develop friendships with his peers. And so if he had a friend that took him alongside and said, hey, let's do homework together, that would be very significant for him. We have now established a partnership with his great aunt who is supportive of his school. Once we got out of that bias that parents from this culture just don't support schooling, we're able to build that relationship that turned into a great opportunity for us. And then some threats to his support is that while he did qualify for the SPED program as emotionally disturbed, now this means we have to change all of his schedule and put him with new teachers, new students, so that he can receive SPED inclusion minutes. And then this kind of disrupts the attachment that he's already started developing. So using the SWOT analysis to view a student is more inclusive and broader than ways that we've looked at student progress in the past. So then what happens if we have a newcomer who can't share their story? Like maybe we can't communicate with them, and maybe they're hesitant to use Google Translate or say hi or any of the devices. One of the things that we can do is we can have them share their story through drawing, which also helps to regulate emotions too. And so this is a newcomer who wrote a personal narrative through a graphic novel format. And I learned so much about her that I would not have otherwise, such as that she loves to do ribbon dancing. I didn't even know that was a thing, and won a competition in it. So what we're doing is we're looking for creative ways to get to know students better and to broaden our perspective about who they are as people and as students. So I want to open up to the chat. What are some ways that you have helped students share their stories in the past? Let's see here. go ahead and just put those in the chat. And thanks for sharing all the students that you have in the chat too. What are ways that you have helped students to share their stories in the past? And let's do this then. You can say, I have helped students by, there's a stem for you. Okay. Notebooks, that's great. Ooh, pattern poem to help them. What else do we have? Cool, talking about their home before they came to the US. Ooh, I love that, poems and cutting pictures from magazines. Okay, keep on putting those things in the chat. I'm going to go back to this because there's so much information to cover in a short amount of time. Okay. So what happens when we broaden our perspective about student stories is that we go from seeing them ultimately as the reluctant learner to Armand Bobby, who's looking for attachment. We see that he enjoys editing other people's work. He plays the tuba. His adoptive mom is very involved, and he's learning to rewrite his narrative about who he is as a student. So this completely shifts our perspective of who the student is when we train teachers to go through these steps of discovering the student's story and questioning their own assumptions about them. So I want to share with you about the student who no one expects anything from. Remember, his father was alcoholic. He never passed anything. He went to juvenile hall for fighting, and kind of what happened to him. So that student, Miguel Morales, had a 7th grade math teacher named Mr. Manning. And Mr. Manning recognized that this kid was playing basketball after school. And so Mr. Manning went and started playing basketball with him and his friends after school and started getting to know that child and making a deeper connection with him. Now, because of that relationship, the student started trying a little harder in math. And then the teacher, Mr. Manning, said, hey, you're pretty good at math. Why don't you take some advanced math classes? And the kid said, okay. And so we started taking advanced math classes. And it was that one teacher seeing potential in him and developing that deeper connection of attachment that completely turned this student's life around. And he ended up graduating as valedictorian. He was accepted at Harvard, and he minored in math because of that one teacher who went to the trouble to discover his story, make a deeper connection to him, and then respond by rewriting the narrative and telling him, you can do this, you're good at math. So the reason I know Miguel Morales' story is because he's actually my husband, and his name isn't Miguel Morales, but it's Ray Diaz. And he now leads an international organization to serve orphaned and vulnerable children. So it is amazing the difference that one teacher can make in the life of a student who no one would expect anything from. This is the Discover, Connect, Respond routine in action. And as I said, we just went over the tools from the first part of it, the part about broadening our perspective of the student's story. So here on your Padlet, you have a whole bunch of tools available, and you have the student feedback, you have how to leverage student interest for writing, especially with newcomers using the picture word inductive model. You have an explanation of it, about how to welcome learners in culturally responsive ways, how to help students to journal their observations, which is a very trauma-informed approach. A little bit about lending your calm to overwhelmed students. And I tried to model a little bit about what the approach looks like in the classroom. And that is about sharing our own stories vulnerably, inviting you guys to practice gratitude. And then there's going to be an opportunity for feedback as well and shared thinking. So on your landing page, you have all the different parts of it. and some more resources to follow to learn a little bit more. But I just wanted to give you this quick preview about what Discover, Connect, Respond is, so that we could start learning together about how do we incorporate trust-based relational intervention with emergent bilingual students, interpersonal neurobiology, which I did not get into because there wasn't enough time, and just start moving our thinking about how can we get entire campuses to look at behavior differently instead of reluctance to learn or insubordination. So that is kind of the gist of it. I wanted to, here's our works cited, to open it up for any questions, and also mention that we have a newcomer training available through Silence Education if you're interested in that. So I'm going to stop sharing now and see what questions we have. You guys can go ahead and put them in the chat, or any questions about anything on the Padlet, just unmute yourself and talk about it. Okay, looks like there are no questions there. Okay, since we have a little bit more, share the link to the Padlet again. Yes, I definitely can.
Hey, Miss White, this is Mr. Alvarez.
Hi.
Good morning. I'd like to know if there is any additional research on these topics. I'd like to learn a little bit more about, trauma and how to support our students.
Yes, there is a ton of research on this, and I'm going to open up my works cited page also, so you could follow into those books about it. Let me just really quick put the Padlet into the chat. And okay, and then I'm going to share screen for the works cited, or do you want me to put the works cited into the chat? But it's also on the landing page. So the research is on the landing page, which you all have. So if you look into the connected child and Dan Siegel, let me see right here. Okay. So this book right here is about trust-based relational intervention, which is used with foster kids. And then Dan Siegel does all the research on interpersonal neurobiology. Regarding research about using the Discover, Connect, Respond routine in the classroom, there is not research on that yet, but it is based on all the research from interpersonal neurobiology, trauma-informed education, and trust-based relational intervention. So here's some resources here, and then here's the works cited in the chat. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Any other questions? No other questions?
We have 2 minutes, Elise.
Okay. Can I show you guys one more quick video about what it's like for when we come at students sometimes without taking culture into mind? Okay, great. I'm going to show you one quick video. I wasn't sure if we're going to have time with. Just kind of a fun video too. Let me see. Okay, this is a fun little video to end us.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sure.
Okay. So this video is about what we try to do in the classroom and looking at it from a different approach.
Savages. Tonight we dine. The feet. I told you, but I told didn't I tell him about the feet? He did tell you about the feet. Really? I've devised a cunning test to see whether these are savage killers. No. Hi there.
You let me handle it. Alex handles it. Marty does nothing.
Hi there.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, Alex, what'd you do?
No, stop. It's okay. I'm just a silly lion. Oh, jeez. Oh, no.
Oh, you good
Oh,
little baby.
jeez.
Did that big mean lion scare you? He did. He's a big bad old putty tat, isn't he? Come on, Mama, I'll hold you. Oh,
They are
look at
so
you.
cute from a
Aren't you
reasonable
just the
distance.
sweetest little thing. Oh, I just want to dunk him in my coffee.
They are just a bunch of pansies.
I don't know. There's still something about that one with the crazy hairdo that I find suspicious.
Nonsense, Maurice.
Okay. Anyways, I just shared that video because sometimes we come across thinking that we are being great educators and we're reaching out to students, and what we see as loving intention to reach out to them, they see as frightening teeth. And so that's part of the being culturally aware of how they receive us and what it feels like to be on the other side of us and our power. And so this Discover, Connect, Respond routine is designed to take culturally informed pedagogy along with trauma-informed education together. So I see we're past time. Thank you so much for being in this session. I would love if you would fill out that feedback survey and help me know how this landed on you. So thank you so much again, everyone.
Thank you, Elise.
Thank you.
Okay.
Super great information. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was great to see everybody in the chat too. Hi, Mr. Alvarez. Hi, everybody. Okay, y'all come to my session at 9:30. I'm going to talk about Elise. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Elise. Awesome.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye, Veronica.